r/ask Reddit. People who cater to the super rich. What things have you seen? I'm a driving instructor and one group rented the track to drive their supercars for the day. At the end of the day they all partnered up and got into the cars to leave. After they were gone we realized that they had forgotten their Lamborghini Aventador at the track. That was the tip. One of the few times I'd be happy with just the tip. Family friends were having marital issues. Their marriage counselor figured out a lot of their problems were overcooking meals. The counselor reminded them that they are rich and can just cater all their meals, and it would be cheaper than getting a divorce. They listened to the counselor and now are happily married again. Aren't you guys like, fabulously wealthy? Oh yeah, we'd completely forgotten about that. This is some real Curb Your Enthusiasm shit. Client was a mega millionaire in the 60s, so even richer when I met him. He'd ride the bus to the office to have free coffee every day. Edit. He was the founder of a company that had its name emblazoned on shipping containers being transported via big rig trucks in the States, but also international shipping and logistics. Came into financial offices daily for the free coffee. Didn't even talk about his finances. Just for the coffee and then would skedaddle. He probably grew up in the 30s and knew to be defensive with his money. Rolled up quarters in your fist. A woman who owned a small private jet business told me one time someone paid them to fly their dog, by itself, to NY for about $45,000 for some training. No other passengers. It's silly to imagine an untrained doggo trying to manage at the baggage claim. I've had co-workers, in Aviation, fly across the country for a lobster roll and coffee beans. The trip there and back probably cost $60K minimum. Unreal. Private aviation is unreal. Let's say you fly from New York to South Florida, open bracket, about 3 hours, give or take a bit. That's 6 hours round trip. Private jets can range from a few thousand an hour to $15K plus. Our company has larger planes. So let's say 8K HR. Round trip travel is $48,000. Just airfare. That is more than a lot of people make in a year, and these folks are spending that on airfare. Private aviation has gone gangbusters since Trump's tax cuts. Good to know it helped some people. Old high school teacher of mine is an extremely successful private tutor and does a lot of work in the wealthy neighborhoods in the area. He told us once he was tutoring a kid and helped him get prepared and pass his college level physics class, and at the end of their last session the kid told him to wait there and went into his dad's office and came out with his payment and an extra $1,000. My teacher tried to deny it, saying it was too much, but the kid said his dad asked him to give a tip. I used to deliver pizza and this big ass house was ordering 4-5 pizza every Sunday. The lady, a worker at this house, was giving $100 tip. The first time, when I tried to refuse it, she told me the master of the house insists on tipping $100 to the pizza guys. I tipped a pizza guy $100 once for bringing me a corkscrew. Not rich, just drunk. I live near a company that builds yachts. One day there was an odd looking yacht. A crew member explained to me that was a shadow yacht. You see, when you get hyper rich and have multiple yachts, you wouldn't want to ruin the aesthetic of your nice yachts with jet skis and helicopters. Nor would you want your crew to sleep on the nice yacht. So you buy a shadow yacht to store your toys and to house your crew. This shadow yacht follows your fleet of nice yachts around. I was hoping shadow yacht meant it used stealth technology or fought the piracy. I'm disappointed. I'm sure there's an even chance that at least one billionaire has outfitted his yacht to fight pirates and tried to lure them into attacking. When rich people want to buy a Jaguar in the UK, they get assigned a special salesperson who is incredibly knowledgeable. They meet in a special fancy office, and special arrangements can be made. This was my friend Chris' job. He had access to things that a normal Jaguar salesperson wouldn't have. Like he could ring up the manager of the factory for special requests level of access. Well, a Saudi price wanted to buy this new Jaguar that had been released. So they met up and spent a full day specing the Jaguar out. I believe the final price was something like $125K for the vehicle. Then came the decision for color. At the time the factory had 16 different color choices for this model. The prince asked if he could sleep on it as it was getting late and almost time for dinner/prayer. My friend Chris says of course, and they set a time to meet the new morning. The next morning the Saudi price is like I figured out an acceptable solution to my color dilemma, to which Chris goes, and what would that be? The Saudi prince goes, I'll order one of each color, and my friend Chris is like, oh well of course. They quote delivery time. Saudi prince was fine and asked for his options and was presented with ocean travel options, to which the prince said, what about air cargo? Chris thinking maybe they'd do 1 or 2 by air cargo and the rest by boat. The prince was like, no, I want all 16 vehicles loaded on a plane and flown to Saudi Arabia. So that's the story on how 16 of the same Jaguar with different colors ended up being flown to Saudi Arabia, all in the total cost was around $2.5 million. Please note the prices should be pound symbol not dollar sign. It's weird that when your story mentioned $125,000 for the car, I was like, that's pretty expensive. But when you said $2.5 million for all 16 to be purchased and to get to Saudi Arabia, I thought, that's not bad at all. I thought the same thing. Was expecting a higher number. I feel like Jaguar didn't appropriately apply the I'm too rich for my own good tax. I became personal friends with my boss and his wife. Super nice people. The wife turned out to be an heiress and would buy me whatever I mentioned. Like in passing during a conversation. I learned gifts were how she was raised to show love. I've trained myself to only talk about things I already own, unless I find something useful she might like and suggest it for her. Can you talk about a new house for your new Reddit friend? I like the way you think. My grandpa was a piano tuner. He couldn't drive due to epilepsy, so family would take him to jobs. One day dad took him to a job and got talking to the owner. He said the guy lived in the biggest, nicest mansion he had ever seen. Everything in the house was crazy expensive, but the owner and his wife were very down to earth and normal, if not a bit rough around the edges. Finally his curiosity got the better of him and dad asked how they made their money. The guy said he used to drive a truck and got tired of needing to carry around bottles of ketchup. That's how my dad met the creator of the ketchup packet. My hero. This is so incredible, I can hardly believe it. Yet, you never could have made this up. Some extremely wealthy people I have been around have a more acute sense of their own time and mortality, leading to impatience. Like they understand how awesome their lives are and therefore how short they feel. I knew a guy whose vintage yacht broke down before summer, so he bought another one strictly for that upcoming summer. His reasoning was he likely had 20 full health summers left in his life and didn't want to spend one of them without a boat, considering he had the means to. Honestly, can't argue with that logic. I am beginning to feel the awareness of being able to count the healthy years left, and I'm not mega rich. Must be amazing to know you can pack those remaining years full of wonderful and wild experiences. My great uncle was very well off. He did not have a guest house. It was a guest mansion, separate from his mansion, in case his kids dropped by. This does not include the Olympic-sized indoor pool. That was a separate building. He bought a cannon. He used it to shoot the mountain behind his house. He shot brand new special bowling balls out of it. They cost $100 per ball. Edit. I'm not sure of the actual size of the pool, but it was definitely bigger than most community pools. But if you want to see the cannon in action, Nitro Circus came by and shot a car with it in one of their episodes. I didn't expect this comment to explode, so I didn't mention the human slingshot. There have been a few viral videos made about it. Used it to shoot the mountain. I don't know why this made me nearly black out laughing so hard. Edit. That edit. I saw that ep. That thing's a beast. Sometimes you need to remind the mountains that we fight back. Was invited to a Christmas dinner while I lived in Seoul by an extremely wealthy Korean family. Very nice family, but I think in hindsight they wanted to show their friends that they had foreign friends like me. Wife had everything catered and the home professionally decorated. It felt like we were in a department store. Multiple Christmas trees, a working train set, staff handing out appetizers on plates, etc. It looked like she studied Christmas movies from the USA and copied everything. Dinner is served on a comically long table with 2 huge oven roasted turkeys and all of the trimmings. They looked perfect. I was later told that Koreans don't like turkey and were just for decoration. They would be thrown out later. We ate Korean food. The family said I could take a turkey home and that the caterer would drop it off with anything else I wanted. Oh hell yeah. Did you take the turkey home? I really hope they did. I can't believe there's people out there pineappling whole ass turkeys for their parties. I worked at a resort and marina that dealt with high-end boats. From mega yachts to brand new cigarette boats. Always assume the quiet dude with the stained shirt is the owner of the performance boat. Never expect tips from mega yachts. The most narcissistic guests were always surgeons. The angriest guests were lawyers. Open bracket. No offense to attorneys. I am one. The richest were in construction and commercial real estate. The best tippers were guys entertaining their side pieces on their boats when you know they're actual wives. So Dr. Strange being an a-hole before the accident was a pretty realistic portrayal. A. Fits better with a cardiothoracic or orthopedic spine surgeon. Those are more god complexy. The neurosurgeons I've met are always more spectrumy than narcissistic. Keith Urban tipped me $7 on a $4 shake and left the keys to his Bentley at the store, but he came back and got them. Keith also bought a couple of guitar pedals for a local kid here in one of the guitar shops. Kid had a budget and was struggling to pick one. So Keith just bought them both for the kid by quietly paying the shop owner on the way out the door, before the kid even knew what he'd done. By all reports he's a genuine decent, down-to-earth bloke. Shaq used to come into my guitar store every once in a while to buy DJ equipment, and it was not uncommon for him to point at a kid playing a nice guitar and say, "I wanna pay for that, too." Have been working for the super rich for some time. Craziest thing I've seen. Brand new 90-meter multi-million pound GBP yacht was built in Netherlands. Maiden voyage to Antibes in France. Owner came on board and left after a few hours. Next week we get sent to Genoa, Italy, where all the bathrooms on board were ripped out and upgraded. That doesn't sound like a big deal, but I'm talking about brand new marble sinks, showers, floors and lobbies all crowbarred out, chucked in skips. Tons of brand new polished marble binned. New marble colors and patterns arrived in the weeks following. There's feed me money, there's duck you money, and there's it's not even a thought money. I used to work for an Arab billionaire's son. A daddy's money guy. Terrible garbage human being. Once saw him spend $16,000 on a wallet. Was a fancy one with little gold spikes on it and stuff. He had shoes with gold on them. I remember one year for his birthday he received like 30 plus cakes. Big fancy cakes, and he told us to leave them on the floor in the hallway outside his room. We walked by those cakes every day for 2 weeks waiting for instruction. After the 2 weeks we were told to throw them away. My college roommate was from a pretty wealthy family in Thailand, but his friend was from the 8th richest family in Thailand. One day I was sitting on the couch exhausted after working a 14-hour shift when they came in giggling about how the guy just bought a $9,000 jacket. I'll never forget that feeling. That was pretty much exactly how much money I was killing myself to make to pay my tuition that semester. One of my friend's parents won a $50 million lottery. We used to work together, and the few years we knew each other before that happened, so they know of the struggle of spending most of your days working in food service to earn a few grand a month. Fortunately they haven't changed as a person, so I still like spending time with them. But it was hard to watch someone I used to be in the same boat spend more money than I make in 2 months on a bag last time we went shopping. Well, they did. I couldn't afford the air in the places we visited. I used to work for a company that modified aircraft for really rich people. I'm talking 747s, not Gulfstreams. This company had made several aircraft for this one customer, who I was told had purchased a new one solely because his spiritual advisor had told him that one of his current planes was bad luck. He still let his wife use it for her personal travel. To me, one of the most exquisite features of these planes wasn't the gold-plated everything or rare wood veneers. It was the silk carpet. That stuff cost over $1,000 per square foot and feels like walking on a bed of angel feathers harvested in the most inhumane way possible. Granted, these guys don't deck out the whole plane, just their personal areas. The aft third is usually reserved for staff and such and is more like a fancy economy class. But yes, silk carpet. One of his current planes was bad luck. He still let his wife use it for her personal travel. I guess it's cheaper than a divorce. Had purchased a new one solely because his spiritual advisor had told him that one of his current planes was bad luck. Gavin Belson. I work at a university offshoot, where a billionaire has donated a few buildings. He'll drive through every now and then to take a look at them. He'll stop and chat with us lowly workers, and occasionally give us tickets to the games in the arena he donated to the university. Edit. Well, this blew up more than I expected. No one's guessed his name so far, but he keeps a low profile and so you wouldn't recognize his name unless you were in the know. Open bracket. Also, it seems I need to get back into deleting Garfield. Sounds like a solid dude. Terry Pegula? A friend did some work on Sylvester Stallone's home. Apparently there's a ton of statues and art of himself, some of which are naked and very well endowed. His house is for sale. You can see it in the real estate videos. Super dark and weird. There is lots of it. I heard an interview on the radio from a guy who was from my hometown in the UK who was Stallone's personal chef in the 90s. He said Stallone was a nice guy. He had something in his house where he could watch the amount of tickets his films was selling in live time, so knew almost immediately whether it was a flop or not. He was married to Bridget Nielsen at the time, and this chef said she was walking about topless or naked all the time, which he thought was strange until she walked up to him one time when Stallone was out and offered it to him on a plate. He politely declined because he liked Stallone and they were divorced a few years later, so there may have been other things going on. My dad delivered a pizza to Rob Dyrdek. He tipped him $100 and apparently farted and thought it would be silent, but it wasn't. That was hush money and you ducked it up. $100 can only get you so far. Some kids have whole plans and strategies they practice to prevent being kidnapped or harmed by crazy stalkers. One kid I worked with was the kid of a big Hollywood player, and people would stalk the kid in an attempt to get to the parent. So this nut job wielding a screenplay broken and cornered the kid. Here I am thinking I am going to have to throw myself physically between them, but the kid dove into a nearby dog kennel and locked themselves in. He couldn't get out, but the nut job couldn't get in either. So the nut job just threw the screenplay at him into the kennel. Meanwhile, I had called the cops. I was so impressed by the kid's quick thinking and asked how he got the idea. But he said that he always keeps an eye out for a way to escape. And when he sees someone he doesn't know approach, he gets ready to run. I felt awful that this kid had to live like that. If I hadn't seen it happen myself, I would have thought it was just paranoia. Yep, my parents know a guy who was an ambassador to a few developing countries when his kids were growing up, and the kids were all trained in what to do if they were kidnapped. The youngest, who was 7-8 years old, was apparently the only kid in his class at school who hadn't been kidnapped. Ducking crazies. Some kids just get security details. My relative's kid wants to ride the bus and the subway because he doesn't like standing out, but he gets recognized in the streets sometimes despite not being a celebrity of any sort, just because of his association to his parents. They constantly worry for him, so he rarely gets to move about on his own. I used to pet sit. I remember a rich person asking me to pet sit their cat. There was a lot of TVs in almost every room. The weirdest was the bathroom. Sorry, cat bathroom. There was a TV playing cat cartoons, an overly fancy litter box and paintings of cats. I grew and ducking tea. I would do the same thing if I were disgustingly rich. My boy Dobby is my rock. He gets a gilded room to throw down some fat logs. Tell me about the overly fancy litter box. I worked for the sister of a billionaire doing odd jobs that eventually turned into doing the same for her friends and family. People in the single-digit millions spend recklessly, always trying to show off their wealth. People in the double-digit millions are a mixed bag. People in the $100 million $B range were incredibly interesting because the ones I worked for were incredibly frugal. If you took away the business aspect, they were normal people, not pretentious a-holes. They didn't really care about appearances anymore. They drank $50 bottles of liquor, not $1,000 scotches. They preferred pizza to a catered meal. They bought the home with the best view, not the biggest home. 5 big purchases were also investments. Own a PGA course, but use a $2,000 set of clubs because they liked the fit. Make a $50 million deal in khaki shorts, sandals, and a t-shirt. Never did I hear a raised voice. Every request was prefaced with please, and often thanked genuinely. I was incredibly shocked, not the demeanor I anticipated. That leads me to the most common thing I saw. Terrible kids. Just absolute abominations of people. Terrible, demanding, and not worthy of the empires their parents built. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.